gives me fits. Hey, I have a question. And this morning, as I struggle to get this over here, probably going to hurt myself before this is over with. All right. So this morning, I got to ask our visitors a question. Because if you come here constantly, I already know the answer you're going to give me. But if you're visiting with us this morning, or if you're here with, been here maybe a time or two, or maybe you grew up here and you're back visiting for a time, I do have one question. I know you're going to be honest with me, okay? Every picture that was on that slideshow, okay? Every picture, everybody went, "Aww," except for two. And everybody laughed at those. Do I have to tell you which two I'm talking about? Now, my question to you is, why is that? Why, when my picture was up there, people weren't like, "Aw." You should feel sorry for this soul that after picture on the floor. As a matter of fact, I woke up about an hour ago in the same place. Okay? So, but help me with that. Before you leave today, if you would, just let me know, why in the world would people laugh at me and go, "Oh, at all those kids"? I don't fully understand that. I don't know. It's just, maybe my wife has some insight she can tell me later. I don't know. But anyway, so no, it's good. And once again, I will re-say things that have been said already this morning, is that I really do appreciate all the work and effort that has been put forward over the last really couple of months for VBS. A lot of people have done a lot of things, and I really, truly appreciate it from my heart. I know we've already expressed that, and of course, the parents and the children for coming and letting us, having the privilege of just being with your children for even just a few short hours yesterday. You know, I've always been, I heard things over and over again that, man, our country is just in a what type of shape, and they're not allowing prayer in schools, and we can just go on and on and on and on about all that stuff. But let me tell you, we serve the same God today that we served and you served when you were that size. And your parents were that size, and their parents were that size. And the fact of the matter is, just the results of even what you saw up here today is that we know that the Holy Spirit and God and everything is working just as it was centuries ago. So I would pray that we continue as parents and continue as church to continue to invest not only financially, but also in our time and everything in our children. And I've always had people say, well, you know, it's good because the youth and the children are the future of our church. And I'm not completely disagreeing with that at all. I firmly believe that. Please understand that. But it is my, I guess you would say, even opinion, and you could take that for what it's worth, because we've all got at least one, right? They're also the church of today. They're not just the church of the future. They are also the church of right now. And if it's always been my fear that if we treat children and youth as the church of tomorrow, there will be no church of tomorrow. So right now, I appreciate you letting your kids be a part, and for us having the opportunity to continue to invest of the church of today and the church of tomorrow. So thank you so much. With all that being said this morning, I'm going to keep it short. I was told this morning, as you would join me in 1 John chapter 2, we'll go in only in verse 6 this morning. I was told early this morning, said, you know, Pastor, there's a fine line between a preaching and a hostage situation. Well, I agree, and today is we're just kind of make things work. Everything's a little different. The pulpit's not up here. We're passing around microphones. I'm walking out in the middle of service to put my microphone on. I know as soon as I walked out, I could hear people going, "Oh, Mo, he's done, isn't he? He's finally had it." I don't know. Something Dave must have said earlier. I don't know. Is that Diving Dave and that glittery inner tube thing I had to wear yesterday? I don't know. I didn't see that in my contract anywhere. All right. So, but anyway, we'll do a little short thing today just for everyone, because I know that everybody's still very tired. It's been a long week, and we want to be appreciative not only of our parents once again, but we'll be back to kind of our, if you would say, normal services next week. But, you know, there's nothing normal about God's house and his services. So maybe we should do it a little different every week. I don't know. So 1 John chapter 2 and verse 6 this morning, the title of the message is Renew My Walk. We've been kind of going through, I think this may be the third or fourth in a series of renewal and renewing our church, renewing it to renewing myself and my walk, renewal of the church's walk, and we'll go through things like renewal of the vision of the church. We've gone through things already of what renewal actually means. And today we look at specifically, like I said, the renewal of my walk. And I'll be honest with you. There is no true secret. It's not a mystery, okay, about what it takes to have a renewal, or specifically the renewal of your walk with God, or as an individual, or as a church as a whole. Because what we have just experienced even yesterday and the coming weeks before that is a form of renewal of the walk of the church. We were shut down for COVID and many things we were afraid to do, and we finally have kind of opened things back up, and we're moving forward. And it just feels like, and it is not only by feeling but by action, you can see the evidence of the renewal of the church across the world and the body as we begin to further do things outside of the doors. We're starting to bring more people in. There are a lot of really good things. So there's no true secret to what renewal actually is. So today I'm probably not going to tell you anything that you've never heard before. I'm certainly not going to tell you anything that you don't already know. So let's read 1 John chapter 2, verse 6 real quick. You'll see it there. It's straight and to the point when it comes to renewal. It says these words: "The one who says he remains in him should walk just as he walked." You want to know the secret to renewal? Be like Jesus. Man, we could almost just say amen and get out of here right now, but we haven't got to the point of a hostage situation just yet, okay? We'll be there, okay, I promise. But fact of the matter is, many of the most simplest things in our life we struggle with as far as doing the most. It seems the things that become easy, or things that should be easy the way we should think about them anyway, are the hardest. For example, when it comes to understanding that Jesus Christ died on the cross to save our sins, if we would believe in him, right? John 3:16, right? Do we have to say it? "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him shall not perish, but have everlasting life." It is that simple. There's no catch. You simply confess and believe. Have faith that Jesus died on the cross and rose again after 3 days. And because of his raising again, let me tell you something. I know this is no secret either, but his death was not what saved you. What saved you was that he came up out of that grave 3 days later. The death was important. I'm not putting I'm not trying to be light on that. I'm not trying to say that it wasn't. It certainly was important because the blood of the Lamb had to be spilled, okay? We know that. But it is his resurrection, his defeat of our one true enemy that we are impossible to defeat ourselves in death. When he rose from the grave, brothers and sisters, that is when grace was applied. That's when mercy was given. That's when we became white as snow once we believed. So things like that is so simple. It seems like that, well, you mean, well, should I do this to be saved, or do I have to do that to be saved? No. As a matter of fact, it says the only thing you have to do is believe. But it makes it so complicated because it's so simple. Well, the same thing when it comes to renewing our walk is very simple as well. But it is also complicated in the fact that we just don't understand how to do it, or we don't want to do it. I'm not sure which one it is. But fact of the matter is, the easiest way to renewal in your life as an individual, considering your daily walk with God or with Christ, is right here in 1 John 2:6. It's simple. Walk just like he walked. If you want to know what renewal is, and if you want to renew your walk, the simplest way I can put it is, if you're going this way and you're walking and you decide, wow, I've really walked away, I need to be more like Jesus, the only way that I can do that is to turn back and go the other direction and follow him. It's that simple. But we make it so complicated. We truly do. I make it complicated. It always seems like there should be something more than just that. But the Bible is very clear when it comes to renewing our walk. It has to be as simple as just turning and walking and following him. When we first started to go back to church, Crystal and I, when we first got married, we started visiting churches, and we landed at Crystal's home church there in Orange for several years. And the pastor had talked about tithing one Sunday. And I was thinking, man, we hadn't done that in a long time. At that point, I was a child still putting my quarters in my envelope and putting it in. That's probably the last time I had tithed up until that point, okay? So I'm sitting there on our way home. I'm like, Crystal, we're never going to catch up. We owe so much. And she goes, and it's just the most incredible thing I've heard even to the date. She said, it's not about catching up. It's about starting. And the same thing applies with our renewal of our walk. It's not that we've got to turn around and run 25 miles back that way to get back to Jesus. All we got to do is turn around and start going. It's not about catching up. It's about moving in the right direction, right? So my brothers and sisters, today we are going to take something that seems to be so complicated, at least in action, but in theory, it's actually very, very easy to do. It's as simple as making a choice. That's it. We make hundreds of choices, knowingly or unknowingly, every single day. Some of them are automatic. Some of them have to be thought-provoking. Some of them take some time to figure out exactly what it is we're going to do and what we're not going to do in the direction we're going to go. But as simple as this, just like my wife told me those many years ago, it's not about catching up. It's about turning around and starting. So my brothers and sisters, it is that easy when it comes to renewing your walk with Christ. And it's that easy as a church as well. Because here we've discussed, as I believe David said just a few moments ago, when it comes to the church and how we function, how we operate, if any one part of the body is out of flux or missing, it makes it a whole lot more difficult for that body to do what it's called to do. If that one body is sick, or if that one part is, going this way and another part's going this way, well, it's kind of hard to accomplish something if one arm's going this way and another arm's going that way. It doesn't work too well, does it? There's got to be a choice to be made. In fact of the matter, and many people don't realize this, there's so many in this world that love to go to this thing. There's a fence sitting here, and they like to straddle it. They like to put one foot on Jesus' side and one foot on the world side. And they said, I got the best of both worlds. I got news. The owner of the fence doesn't live in heaven. The owner of the fence is the enemy. And if he's got your one foot on one side, he's got you. Because if he can keep you just enough off of your walk to deter other people from coming to know Jesus, then he's won. The fence belongs to the enemy, not the Savior. Jesus doesn't say, I want your right leg. He doesn't say, I want your left ear. He says, I want your whole being. And that's what we're getting at today in our points. The first point today, 2 quick aspects of renewal that we must think about. And it's, like I said, very simple. Say the first aspect, or shall we say the root of a renewed walk, is simply a living sacrifice, or being a living sacrifice, just like Christ, right? Christ lived not only as a living sacrifice, but he lived such a way as a living sacrifice that he did indeed give his life for that. How many of us are willing to go to our literal grave because of the call of Christ? Let me tell you, there are a lot of missionaries in this world that don't mind being number 2 or number 3 into a foreign nation. But not many people want to be number 1. Because that number 1 often ends up not coming back. There's got to be a number 1, right? So when it comes to renewal, we must live as be a living sacrifice. Let me give you 2 quick examples. There are a lot of examples of what it means to live as a living sacrifice in the Bible, and we can sit here for a very long time and discuss every single one of them. It'd take us forever just to do how Jesus lived as that living sacrifice, but obviously we don't have time for that here this morning. But I'm going to give you 2 quick, and they're actually back to back. We're not going to turn there. You can certainly write them down in your notes if you want to. But it is found in Luke chapter 18, and then right next to it in Luke chapter 19, there are 2 stories that you are extremely familiar with. That's why I chose them. But one is called the rich young ruler. We've heard that, right? That's in chapter 18. Luke chapter 18, the rich young ruler. We know his story. We know it well. He came up to Jesus and he said, what do I need to do to follow you? How can I renew myself, or how can I be your disciple? And what was Jesus' answer? Well, first the young man said, well, I've done all of these things. I've been a good kid. I've honored my parents. I've lived as a sacrifice. All of these things I have done. Of course, I'm paraphrasing Aaron's version, of course. I've done all of these things since my youth. And Jesus looks at him and he sees the heart, right? He knows what's truly on the inside. It's more than just what you see on the outside. There's also more on the inside that matters as well, right? So what does Jesus say? Well, if you truly want to be my disciple, if you truly want to do it, he says, first you must go, take all of your stuff, sell it, give it to the poor, and follow me. What was the young man's response? You see, because there's a very contrasting difference between these two characters. You have the rich young ruler who had done everything perfect all of his life except this one thing, right? And then Jesus comes a chapter later and meets this cat by the name of Zacchaeus. And there is there is a reason in my mind, at least why Luke, remember, everything in the Bible is written in order, in purpose. There's nothing out of spot. There's a reason why the order they put it in. So I think Luke, the physician, got out and knew that he was going to put these two things together because they directly contrasted one another. You had the rich young ruler who did everything right but couldn't do the one thing that God truly called him to do. But then you had Zacchaeus, who was also very wealthy, right? Who did what when Jesus called him to do it? The complete opposite response, right? You had a perfect guy, at least in our mind, that couldn't measure up because of that one thing. And then you had one of the most detested, terrible, sinful. People would go to the other side of the street when he would walk down the road. Zacchaeus was a man that everybody just could not stand. I would even suggest, and this is a powerful word, probably people hated the guy. If Zacchaeus was knocking on your door, you had a problem. He was coming to collect, and you probably didn't have what it took to pay, right? Well, there's a sermon there. So my brothers and sisters, Zacchaeus, the man who was evil, at least in the eyes of the people around him, looked at Jesus and said, not only will I give back what I have taken, I will give back even more than that. You see the contrast? Which one lived a living sacrifice? When the rubber met the road, the one that everybody couldn't stand ended up being approved. And the one that everybody thought, he's got it perfect, was not. But there's a difference. See, Jesus gave opportunity to both. They made their own choices. And that's what it comes to living a living sacrifice. I think that's why it's so difficult, because we cannot decide who our master is. Oftentimes our master is ourselves and not Jesus or not God. So this morning, as we look at renewing our personal walk, we've got to understand and we've got to make that choice of living as a living sacrifice. Now, the second point today, and it's real quick, and it's the last one, believe it or not. We're chucking a lot along, all right? The second point this morning comes off of that Zacchaeus story and off that rich young ruler. And the very fact that someone who is walking with Christ, or especially someone who is renewed their walk, who has made that choice to turn around and begin walking with Jesus, as simple as that they begin to produce fruit as Jesus produced fruit. Now, that doesn't mean that you can necessarily be just exactly like Jesus. I'm sure there are some things that he was certainly well more capable of than I am. He's God. He can do it, right? All right? But indeed, my life should be a living example of what he and how he lived while he was here. And shall we say this? Can we get off of the fact that Jesus lived? Can we not just say that he lives? Okay, there's a big difference in those words. As a matter of fact, my 12-year-old son, or almost 12, shouldn't say that. He's 11. Sorry, Crystal. Okay? My 11-year-old son came home one day and he said, why do we say Jesus lived? Because he lives. There's a big difference, right? There's a significant difference in that. But anyway, as we take a look at this, there is an option or an obvious conclusion that if someone is living or have turned and renewed themselves in a walk with Christ, or the church has turned and renewed herself to walking with Christ in his calling, Brothers and sisters, there should be evidence or fruit produced because of that walk. The evidence should be clear that we should be moving, or that we should or have turned and began to renew our lives. It's not a matter of always, and this is one thing, and this is off my notes. I'm going long now, I can already say. But not everybody has a walk to Emmaus experience. Not everyone has a road to Damascus experience where they're walking down the road and they're a terrible person like Saul, and Jesus comes down, there's a big light showing, and all this stuff is going on, and scales comes on your eyes, and he hits the floor, and Jesus is sitting there. Not everybody has that experience. Matter of fact, I would seem to suggest that most people don't. Man, ask Elijah when he was hauled off in that cage if God was in the big whirlwind or the big fire. He was just in the stillest and smallest of voices, wasn't he? So we can't always look for God to show up in some huge way to show us, oh, that's right, maybe I should do that. As a matter of fact, a lot of us truly know what God has called us to do. We just refuse to recognize it. So my brothers and sisters, this morning, I just want to encourage you that if you have believed that you have renewed your life, or the church has renewed your life, I would ask you, in order to confirm that, to look at your fruit and what type of fruit is it producing. Look at Zacchaeus. Look at the rich young ruler, right? Which one produced fruit? Well, I believe it was Zacchaeus. There's some questions I want to leave you with today. And there's like 6 of them, and I'm not going to go over them. I'm not going to elaborate on them. I'm just going to ask them, and y'all are going to take it home. Y'all are going to decide for yourselves. And some of these are pretty tough, but here it goes. I'm going to read them, so that's why I'm going to just stare at my notes for a second. The first question I would like to ask everyone here, including myself, is how disciplined is my attitude towards myself, God, and others? That's how you know if you're producing fruit like Christ, right? Look at the next one. How disciplined are my words in general? Number 3, how disciplined are my morals? Now, I know, Brother Aaron, these are more like work questions. You're right, because James talks about the evidence of your salvation being works, and the evidence of that renewal being the works that you are doing. How to know if you are renewed? How do you know if you have for sure turned and you're following Christ? Easy. Look at the fruit, okay? Think about it this way. If you plant an onion, you probably should not expect an orange when it grows, right? I don't know about you. I've planted a few onions in my life, and I've never gotten an orange. James, have you ever gotten an orange when you planted an onion? Any of our master gardeners ever produced a fruit that you didn't plant? What about cooking cornbread? You don't put all the ingredients in for cornbread and stick it in there and expect T-bone steak when you pull it out. What about the sponge comparison? If you take a sponge and you dip it in oil-filled, trash, gunky, muck, mud puddle, and you pull it out, and when you squeeze it, what do you expect to come out? Clean water? Probably not. It's going to come out what you put in it, right? Same thing when it comes to producing our fruit. You know if you're truly walking in a renewed spirit with Jesus, if your fruit is producing the type of fruit that Jesus produced, right? I'm going to ask you a couple of more questions. How disciplined is your worship? How disciplined is your grace of giving? I'm going to flip these words. And your giving of grace. And the last one, how disciplined is your ministry? Let me tell you, brothers and sisters, and just so you know, I know I've had some people come up to me even the last few days and said, you know what, I really want to be renewed. I really want to work. I really want to do things in church. I just don't know where I fit. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. You're in luck. I know, right? Surprise, you're in luck. Coming up on Wednesday, not this Wednesday as we have business meeting, but the next Wednesday after that, we're going to start a series on Wednesday night about our spiritual gifts. We're going to find out exactly what your spiritual gift is. And then from there, maybe we can talk about how you can use that spiritual gift in the function of the church. That's how we're going to do it, right? If we're going to do it, might as well do it scripturally, wouldn't you say? I mean, that's what we're here for, right? So brothers and sisters, today, answer those questions to yourself. How do you fit? Are you producing that fruit of a renewed walk in Jesus Christ? So my prayer today, and I would hope that your prayer would be, as we've left the last few weeks on a prayer note, is that we should pray. And my challenge has always been to always pray for renewal of yourself, renewal of your mind. Romans 12:2, right? Always pray for that renewal. But as our praise team and Brother Kent comes up for a moment of invitation, I would like to also encourage you to add to that prayer is that you would also pray one of the most dangerous prayers you could possibly pray. And that is this: Lord, will you renew my walk with you? And furthermore, would you give me that opportunity to produce fruit to show how serious I am about renewing my walk with you? I'm telling you, brothers and sisters, today could be an amazing moment for our church, and it already has been an amazing week for our church. But I pray, and listen, everybody's going to walk out of here this morning making a choice. Whether you choose to make that public or not, everybody here is going to make a choice. They're going to make a choice either to accept Christ as their Lord and Savior and begin their walk. They're going to choose to stand behind the pew when they know they maybe shouldn't. Maybe they're going to come up here, and maybe they're going to renew their life to Christ today at the altar. Whatever that decision is, I promise you, everybody's going to make one. It's just a matter, the difference is what you do with that decision. That's part of renewing your walk. As part of renewal and as part of the church, if you need a renewal of your walk, let me tell you, it's good for everyone to know. Not so we can look at you and go, well, that person over there, you know what they did. No, it's so that we may join you and help you and walk with you in that renewal. We cannot help if we don't know, right? Makes sense, right? So, brothers and sisters, today, allow me to encourage you as you stand for just a couple of moments of invitation this morning. Everybody, please stand. It's that we may focus our hearts on what it means to renewal, and that we would ask God to give us a spirit of renewal. Because just this way, we don't like to pray like this often. It's because usually our prayer is the beginning of our involvement in the situation. So my brothers and sisters today, don't hold on to the back of the pew. If the Lord is leading you to do something today, I pray that you would do it. Just a couple of verses is all we're going to do.